Welcome to News with a View, a Fat Cat production, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Welcome to tonight's show. Today is Sunday, September 14th, and this is episode 130. We're going to be discussing still more of the real left. That is continuing to blame the Republicans for Charlie Kirk's murder. I just can't wrap my head around the Democrats. They're literally out of their minds. The stuff that's coming out of their mouths is so horrendous and heinous. And the good news is that it's making the papers, and the media is picking it up, and people are saying we've had enough of them, and it's going to have to stop. The left has gotten so used to just being able to boldly make lies without ever being challenged, without ever being questioned, without ever being called to task on it. And now that's going to be over. And all of this is going to be part of 2026, folks. Liberal left retired Harvard law professor makes, of course, a false claim. A distinguished Harvard retired law professor and legal scholar has been hammered on social media after spreading a now debunked rumor that suspect Charlie Kirk's murderer was an ultra MAGA, and that the Republicans were trying to blame liberals for the tragedy. Lawrence Tribe made the comment in his post on his X account, and a lengthy post from an account called Occupy Democrats, which attempted to paint the picture of Tyler Robinson's political ideology, which has been called into question. He was a undetermined political registrant, meaning that he didn't belong to the Republicans. He didn't belong to any party. He didn't identify as being belonging to a party. Though his family had stated that in the last year, he'd gotten more politically active. Now, Tyler was seeing another man, which is, that's all right. You want to see another man, have at it. So, and there are plenty of gay people that are Republicans. So, I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, every gay person, every this person is going to be notched into being a Democrat or a liberal or a progressive. That's hard. I wouldn't say it's hardly the case, but it is not the absolute case. Tribe made these comments, and then, of course, took off on X, and everyone went after him. But he's not the only one. He's not the only one. Occupy Democrats group, which calls itself the #1 Democratic organization on social media, tried to paint Robinson as an unstable, homegrown white man with access to firearms, though describing his family as hardcore MAGA and run-of-the-mill conservative gun nuts. So this is what they were trying to portray the shooter and his family as being, crazy MAGA people that, guns. And it was his family that eventually turned him in and said, hey, Robinson was in a romantic relationship with a transgender partner, a male who was transitioning to a female. But really, folks, just another dude. And that, people were taken back that knew him, that he would do such a thing. So, again, my look at him is, who was he listening to? Where did he get these ideas? And, I mean, was it all his idea? Or was he listening to a group? What was he doing? I find that would be the first thing that I would go to in trying to figure out what was his real motive behind this. And someone like this, you can't say, he was trying to stick up for the transgender community, or he was trying, because why would he risk everything if this person that he was seeing was the love of his life? Why would he risk all that? Why would he do such a thing? No one was stopping him that we know of. No one was threatening him that we know of. So what made him go from an outspoken person, because you could be outspoken, I'm outspoken. So you could be that, that's fine. You could be all the way to the other side, or all the way to the, but to either side you want, in the middle, whatever, as long as you're not violent or threatening. But what we have seen coming out of a lot of the left has been outright hate. And you get that. You get crazy people that, there was a nurse in Georgia that said horrible things and wished horrible things on the Kirk family on her social media. And she worked at a hospital. And she was out there. She identified herself and everything. And she was fired. You're going to have school teachers. You're going to have a lot of people being fired. And that's, you say you should have the free speech to do that. No one should have free speech to threaten people. That's hate speech, right? Didn't the left scream for that? For legislation? And now you're crying when, well, it's free speech. No, it's not free speech if you threaten someone. I can understand. I would even go as far as to say you could have your comments that, he brought this on himself. You can have that opinion, and you shouldn't be held. As long as you're not putting it out on social media. Because if you work for a company, I don't know any company where somewhere buried in their employee handbook, they warn you about that. That, hey, you can't post and do that. You can't do anything that would make us look bad. And you could say, well, that's an infringement upon my First Amendment rights. I would agree with you. But the courts have said else, and we're a nation of laws, right? So, got to be careful. Representative Dave Min, Democrat out of California, was slammed after he falsely claimed the suspect, Charles Kirk's assassination, was MAGA, which he dubbed part of the radical right. he made this claim on Friday. And Governor Spencer Cox, a Republican in Utah, who really is a very good speaker. I mean, I knew very little about him, but his handling with the media and everything, I'm extremely impressed by the guy. Said it was very clear Robinson was deeply indoctrinated with leftist ideology. Now, you could be indoctrinated with leftist ideology, and you could say Charlie Kirk was indoctrinated into the far right ideology. I think you could make that statement and not get in trouble. Both of them shouldn't be shot for it. And Charlie Kirk certainly did not deserve to be murdered for his beliefs that were not hateful. They just called into question, someone that wants to mutilate their body or pretend they're someone else as being not mentally stable. That being gay was an affront to God. And, and you could say, no, it's not. And you could say, yes, it is. And you shouldn't be shot in the neck for it. You want to be pro-LGBTQ, whatever alphabet it is. You shouldn't be murdered for it. I mean, we don't throw people off of buildings because of it. But we should be able to engage and speak what we feel about it. It doesn't stop their right to do it, to be that way. Not here in America. And the same right has to go the other way. Governor Spencer went on to say one family member interviewed by officials said Robinson openly talked about his belief that Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. Min has kept up his post on X as of Saturday night, which says, now that Charlie Kirk's assassin has been identified as MAGA, I'm sure Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and all the insane GOP politicians call for retribution against the radical left will now shift their focus to stopping the toxic violence of the radical right, which there's no radical right. All right? Of course, people jumped all over Representative Min, including the National Republican Congressional Committee, which called the Democratic California Democrat unhinged, drunk, and disgraceful. Unhinged conspiracy theorist Dave Min is spewing lies and exploiting a tragedy to score cheap political points. Besides being a drunk, Min is reckless, disgraceful, and a pathetic excuse for a congressman who will say anything to distract from his own failures. Californians deserve better, National Republican Congressional Committee spokesman Christian Martinez said in a statement on Saturday. Now, you have people that are saying things and then having to pull back. You had Rosie O'Donnell, who said that the shooter who killed the children in Minnesota, you know, it was all a lie. He wasn't trans. He wasn't this. He wasn't that. It was, you know. And then she had to come back and say, you know, no, I was wrong. Just like the professor, the retired professor. Well, I don't care that he was a professor of law. He could have been a plumber. Who cares? He made the statement, and it was wrong. And if you make a statement and you find out that you were mistaken about it, and then come back out and follow up and go, hey, whoa, I was wrong. I got the story all wrong. Now, Rosie O'Donnell came out and said, I was wrong. Stephen King had made a comment and has then come out and said, I was wrong. I only read something and didn't take the whole thing into context. Because people that want to use what people say only give snippets. They don't give the broad picture of what that person was actually saying to push an agenda that would be counter to what the statement was really trying to say, to trying to push something. And yeah, I said that, but you didn't say what I said first, and you didn't say what I said afterwards. And that happens with all people that say statements. The other side will skew it. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, it happens all the time. But you can come out and say, hey, that wasn't what, that's not, I said it, but you got to print what I said before it and afterwards. And that's where people misunderstand the Constitution, is they just fixate on a sentence. And you can say, well, that's the word. And you would be correct in saying that's the word. But it's the words before it and the words after it that shape that sentence. And, I cite the 10th Amendment, where they said, the federal government, states can't be compelled. But if you, to follow federal law. But if you read the whole meaning of that, it's a statement means that the powers that the federal government has in the Constitution is the power. No more, no less. And the powers that are in the federal government and laws are such. And the 10th Amendment was really if you look up the 10th Amendment, it's really there was so much back and forth on it, on what it really was about. And it was about to limit the federal authority over the states. But you have to look on what was going on back then. And then much later in the 20th century, there was some law, I take that back. There were some rulings and opinions by the Supreme Court that were absolutely reckless. And I think are going to be revisited very shortly. Democratic lawmakers have called for violence just up to a few months ago. And I say New Jersey Representative LaMonica McCleaver called for aggressive action against President Donald Trump's administration during a protest outside the Department of Treasury in Washington, D.C. McLever, addressing the crowd of demonstrators, urged protesters to shut the city down and declared, "We are at war." And people said, hey, that's rhetoric is dangerous. Because when you say that and you are a elected official, I want to tell you what that is, folks. That's advocating insurrection. And President Trump is going to use these comments to bolster his claim of why he's acting in the manner he's acting when it comes to troop placements, ICE, and being able to make arrests. I mean, I think that the Democrats who is ever, are they being guided? I mean, totally, there's no one telling them, hey, don't do this. Hey, get this person, get them back into the fold. Right now we got to circle the wagons, but get them in there, because if they go out there, they'll get us all killed. And there's no one doing that. Schumer, Jeffries, terrible. Terrible. And Jeffries inherited it from Pelosi, so I don't blame Jeffries that much. So he's not a very good leader. Schumer, you'd expect more from Schumer. Now that comment that she made, I think, was like in, months ago. Well, whenever the New Jersey incident happened, where they arrested the mayor of Newark or whatever, and subsequently that has kind of died down. And James Comer, Republican Kentucky, had mocked the rhetoric. Democrats are hyperventilating and sensationalizing over it. Over the past, and he said this was back in whenever that happened. Past few days, we heard wild claims from Democrats that we are, quote, at the beginning of a dictatorship, end quote, and we are in a constitutional crisis. And they keep using that. We are in no constitutional crisis, and there's no dictatorship. But that type of rhetoric, and I said this before in my other podcast, is why the Democrats lost so badly on November 5th, 2024. America has had enough of it. And we want reforms. We want this to stop. We want people that follow common sense. And I don't think that's asking much. In March of 2025, Schumer accused of inciting far-left activists after a protest of luncheons featuring New York reps turns physical. And Schumer, we are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts and going after these Republicans who are voting the way they're voting and forcing them to either change their vote or face the consequences. What's the consequences? You're going to shoot us? You're going to incite mentally ill people to commit crimes? You're going to loot? You're going to rob? You're going to burn? What are you doing, Schumer? Chucky? What are you doing? You can't do that, Schumer. And I've said this before. And he came out, and that was during a PBS interview. This is a long and relentless fight that we fight every day, and I'm confident that we will bring Trump's popularity numbers and strengths down if we keep it up, if we keep it up, if we keep at it. What are you keeping up at? Disturbing luncheons, disturbing people? How about you think of passing laws? How about making legislation? Schumer's out of his mind. He's another one that has to be voted out. We will take our revenge in the voting booth, where we've always taken it. In June of 2018, and I realize this was a long time ago, but this is how far back the Democrats were calling for violence. Maxine Waters calling for attacks on the Trump administration at a rally in Los Angeles in 2018. If you see anyone from that administration, cabinet member, in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them and you tell them you're not welcome anymore anywhere. Well, this is America, sweetheart. And this is what incites people. And everyone was like, oh, it's just Maxine Waters. She's always, blah, 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 blah. And you don't want to be confrontational. You don't want to run away with it either. But it emboldened them. Our lack of standing up to them and going, no, what you're talking about, no, I don't agree with it. And this is why I don't agree with it. But you don't want to be confrontational, because what was happening to the people that were becoming confrontational, except for them, is you lost your job. They'd take paid protesters in front of, companies and protest and go, that person has to go. That person has to go. And the company goes, oh, that person has to go. But that wasn't the people. These were people being paid by the Democrats out there. And then they'd go to the next protest and get paid. It wasn't the voice of the people. It was the voice of the Democrats. And it's just fundamentally wrong. It should not be allowed. Paid protesters is not an occupation. Our right to protest was freely to protest, not being paid to protest. How did Waters think this was going to go down when people were harassed and chased? And they did that in Washington. Remember Acorn? Remember Black Lives Matter? Say his name, say his name, say his name. Yeah. I'll also give you his arrest records, too. This was the ridiculousness of them, but they got away with it because no one wanted to say anything, because everyone was afraid, if I say anything, I lose my job. Well, not anymore. We're not worried about that anymore. We're going to call out your bullshit. And you're going to have people, if you have never listened to like Scott Adams on his podcasts. Remember Dilbert, and they yanked Dilbert out? And he has a great podcast. And he's still a Democrat. He has a great podcast. And but he uses common sense. And you go, all right, that guy's all right. He has his opinions and views and stuff. You don't have to agree with everything everyone says, except for me. But you have people that have been canceled. What more can you do? He's a multimillionaire. He doesn't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to worry about it. But he worries about being shot for his beliefs. Right. We see what's happening. The handwriting's out there. We're a huge voice. And what happened with Charlie Kirk is now a turning point. And we're not going to be afraid to speak up. I was never afraid to speak up. But who listened to me? Now, if you're watching this and you're listening, join my channel. It's not monetized. I get nothing from it. By getting people to subscribe, opens the door up, of course, in YouTube to more features that I could go out and go up on a list. And I mean, it's not much, but it's something. The idea that the Democrats think they're going to shut us up. Nope. Nope. This is going to be a watershed moment. And you have, I said this when they assassinated Kirk. And I said it when they tried to assassinate Trump. You have no idea what you've done. You couldn't win politically, so you try to exterminate them. Who's the Nazis now? Who's the fascists now? Who's the dictators now? Yeah, Democrats. You are going down in 2026 like it's never been seen before. And there are a lot of good Democrats out there. And when I say Democrats, I mean people in political power, not my next door neighbors or anything like that. But your agenda by being violent and doing what you have done and going, well, I didn't tell them to do that, and egging these people into violence. When you're out of power, you have no relevance. You can only be relevant if you're sitting in Washington or sitting as a legislator in your state. And you know what? I wasn't happy in South Carolina with Lindsey Graham or Scott. Russell Fry I like. He's our local guy. But I wasn't happy with senators. And you know what? Now I'm going to vote for him. I don't care. And I'm not that type of voter. I'm not that type of voter. I'm a conservative. I'm a federalist. But I'm also a believer a good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from or who it comes from. And if I see that that's a good idea that has legs, that can do something where I go, yeah, okay, I could get there with that. I can get there. I see where you're going with this. Now, I'm not, because you Democrats are dangerous. You're dangerous. James Comey, remember James Comey? James Comey, former FBI director. He posts 8647. A code for calling for death. 86 is 86ing someone, taking them out. 47 was the presidential number. And he goes, well, it's not what I was saying. I didn't really know what that meant, and I just saw it on. I took a picture of it and put it on a post with no captioning, saying, "Look at this! Look what someone foul did." And they're leaving that so people can see it. And I go, you know what? That's wrong. He didn't do that. He sat there smiling. FBI director. Well, former FBI director. When the United Healthcare CEO was murdered, Elizabeth Warren called it a warning. People can only be pushed so far. So if you're a CEO, you better watch your back. And she was never called out on the carpet for that. There were little blurbs here and there, but never called out on the carpet for that. Now, Comey was called on the carpet for it. They made them give a statement to the FBI. Now, you give a statement to the FBI if you try to mislead them or try to be elusive, you're going to go to jail. You don't even have to lie to them. That's why I say, if you talk to the police, talk to a federal agent or any police agent, if they come knocking and asking you questions, you exercise your 4th and 5th Amendment and get a lawyer. And you could be 100% innocent, and you could find yourself in trouble. Well, when we asked you this, you said this. Well, I didn't want to get this guy in trouble. Oh, no. Now you're in trouble. So, lawyer up. Because when you lawyer up, I'm going to guarantee you, unless you are truly being arrested, but if they're just questioning you, all you're doing is giving them the information that they now can't charge you with. Don't give it to them. Have a lawyer there. They want to go fishing. The water's that way. So, Office Depot refused to make a poster for people who wanted to honor Charles Kirk. They wanted posters made up, and they wanted to hold a memorial for him. And Office Depot in Michigan refused to take the order and said Charlie Kirk was a racist and they wouldn't do it. So these people videotaped it, the whole thing. Went to the CEO of the company. The company turned around and go, yeah, all those people involved with it, fired. So now the reverse is happening. The reverse is now happening. And this is the problem. And this is the same thing that I said. You had Obama, you had Biden. And you had almost 2.5 to 3 years of an ineffective Donald Trump because he was trying to defend himself on all positions at the White House when his first term. And now he's going in, and his actions are that of a person who knows he's been screwed and now has his agenda that he's going full steam on. And it's to make up for 12 years of Democratic mismanagement of the United States. And I understand. People thought, oh, Trump, the second week he was in there, why aren't the prices going down? It's going to take years to correct the damage that was done by Obama and Biden. And some of that damage is irreversible. Now, the one person I will give credit to for saying the rhetoric had to stop was Adam Schiff, who has spoken many times on the subject of political violence. Now, he can get up there and say all that, and that's very good, Adam Schiff. I applaud you for doing that. But let's turn the pages back a little bit. He was one of the key voices of starting the cry of the Trump administration ending democracy, calling Trump a fascist, saying Trump was a Russian agent. Him, Nadler, Pelosi, Feinstein, Waters, Green, Schumer, were all the people that started this and kept saying that Trump bad, Trump yellow, Trump orange, look at his hair, he's a baby. The Democrats did all that. And now Trump is in power. Because he is in power. He won. We put him there. We put him there. And we want accountability. We want accountability. Charlie Kirk was murdered because all you heard from the left, liberals and Democrats, was if you are not supportive of LGBTQ, if you're not supportive of free Palestine, if you are not a supporter of the left, you're the enemy. You're the enemy. And that's what we've heard. And we'll cancel you. You open your mouth and we'll cancel you. Well, guess what? Went into the voting booth yet again and said enough of this shenanigans. You're lying. You lied, Democrats, Biden, Harris, Schumer, Pelosi. And Pelosi, that piece of shit, ran. She got out of Dodge. She knew. But you just weren't lying to the Republicans. You were lying to your own base. And you got up there and you go, no, give money to Joe Biden. He's going to win. He can do a second term. He's great. He's wonderful. And he gets up there, and then they didn't even try to say, oh, he had a bad, listen, he just came back from, 80 years old, traveling all over the world, fixing problems, addressing global problems that affect us. He had a bad day. Wait till the second debate. Let's see what happens. They didn't even do that. They knew that Biden was shot. And their biggest fear was losing the houses. And they tried to do whatever they could they knew they were going to lose the White House. But they didn't want to lose the House. And they lost everything. They kept telling America, oh, Harris is up by 50, boom. She's going to take Iowa. She's going to take Texas. And I can remember looking at other polls and looking at numbers and saying to myself, it can't be. How can this be? And I remember talking to, people that I'm very close with and saying, Trump's going to win this sizably. The only state I did not call, was Wisconsin. I knew from the numbers. I knew from traveling up and down the East Coast. I really thought that he'd take Virginia, but that was a pipe dream. I knew he was going to take Pennsylvania. No, I knew he was going to take Florida and Texas handedly. I knew he was going to take the big states. And he even did pretty good in New York. Which, Hochul, she's in trouble. She's in trouble. And she's another one. She made a comment about all's fair in love and war. We're not at war with anyone. Yet she makes these comments, and that was very recently, maybe like August 25th, or August 5th, maybe. I'm pretty sure it was like the later part of August she made a comment about being at, love and war. And it's those type of comments that got us to where Charlie Kirk, got us to where Trump was shot. Which we hardly hear about anymore, right? Hardly hear about that. But Charlie Kirk, you're going to hear about that. And I think Democrats, moderate Democrats, are really going to have to sit back and go, I can't support these people. Or at least I can't support them financially. And that's already happening. The big Democratic donors are going, hey, back off, cowboy. You got as much from me as you're going to get. And they're going to go, you hear that? And I go, well, I don't hear anything. Yeah, that's the train leaving the station, never coming back. That's what you're hearing. And that's what the Democrats, if you're a moderate Democrat, you can vote. Vote, and don't stay home. Vote. Don't let anyone take your vote from you. Don't do that. But I wouldn't give them a dime. I wouldn't give the Democrats a dime. And as much as you'd have people going, I'd love for the Democrats to sit home and not vote. Don't do that. Always vote. Always vote. Hold your nose, vote. Do what you need to do, but vote. Get in there, vote red. You don't have to tell anyone. No one's going to call you out on it. Vote blue. No one's going to say anything to you. No one's going to call you out. But when you don't vote, you gave a vote to the other guy. That's how I always looked at it. So, always vote. Always, always, always vote. But I wouldn't give them a dime. I wouldn't give the Democrats a dime. So, all right, with that, I'm going to get this out the door for this evening. I'm going to do very little editing, if anything, just except, some titles and some stuff, and that's it. It's going to be out. If you haven't joined my channel, please do. You don't have to agree with me, and I'd love to have comments. Except from Bob in New York, stop. Stop typing. Just call me on the phone. Tell me what you think. Never stopped you before. But, yeah. Join my channel. Don't have to agree with me, but it's always good to know how the other people are thinking. So I belong to a lot of left-wing sites, a lot of right-wing sites, because I want to know what they're thinking. Scary, but I do it. All right. Give to a charity if you can give. What I always say. Just make sure it's a bona fide charity. You go to them. Don't have them come to you. Don't become a victim helping a victim. If you can, give to a food bank. They need all the help they can. And when you're there, ask them what else other than food they need. You got clothing, you got blankets, you got stuff. They could all use it. Of course they'd want money, but, they're a food bank. They'll take food. And if they need paper goods, women's stuff, that's all good. That's all good for them. So, say a prayer. Prayer does work. You have a lot of people that, debunk that. Don't buy into it. Don't buy into it. Now more than ever, we are being tested. All right. And with that, I'm going to say good night, and I'm going to get this out the door as quick as I can. So everyone, have a good evening as I fade to black.